Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Inside the Wrapper with Stogie Chaz. Hey, listen, we've got a great interview for you today. It's with Terence Reilly of Aganorsa Leaf. If you know anything about Aganorsa Leaf or Terence Reilly, you're not going to want to miss this one. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back. And our special guest is Mr. Terence Reilly of Aganorsa Leaf. Terence, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I greatly appreciate it. It's truly an honor.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
So we've known each other for several years, and you're great to the Wrecking Crew. You are an official member of the Wrecking Crew.
Indeed, I am. I have hats and shirts and swag to prove it.
I think we have more swag than any crew that's out there.
Yeah, I think I have more swag with Wrecking Crew than Aganorsa.
That's true. And you've always been great to us. We've been able to go down to the warehouse and hang out and just enjoy ourselves. And you've been very gracious to us. So we thank you for that.
No, thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about the history and how Aganorsa Leaf has evolved over the years?
Yeah, so Aganorsa, it starts with Eduardo Fernandez, the owner. And so Eduardo Fernandez, in some ways, it's a similar story to other companies and people in the industry. In other ways, it's totally different. It's similar in the sense that Eduardo is Cuban, like quite a few people in the cigar industry. Mm-hmm. And he left Cuba when he was young, when his family generously donated all their stuff to Castro, and moved to South Florida. And there's a lot of similarities there, obviously.
Right.
But that's kind of where it ends. His family was not involved in cigars or tobacco in any way. And he had no affiliation with it either himself growing up or anything. He went to Wharton School of Business at Penn, became a banker. In the late 80s, he and his brother saw that pizza in Little Caesars and Domino's, and there was like a big rise in delivery pizza and that kind of thing. And they took that model and took it to Spain and opened up a company called Telepizza. And Telepizza was kind of a similar concept. It was basically they would deliver the pizza, and it was a new concept in Spain, which is a more traditional food market. Mm-hmm. And it was very successful. Within, I think, 7 or 8 years, maybe less, they took the company public and made a potload of money. And at that point, he was in his 40s, and he could kind of do whatever he wanted to do. And he had always wanted to be in farming. He liked agriculture. It was just something he was interested in. And his wife was Nicaraguan. And he ended up going to Nicaragua in the late 90s and investing in cattle and pigs and rice and different agricultural things, and in tobacco. He actually met with Nestor Plasencia at one point, and Nestor said this is a great market or a country for producing tobacco. And so he got involved in tobacco. And because he wasn't familiar with the tobacco business, he went to Cuba and he hired these Cuban agronomists who had worked for Cuba Tobacco for, in some cases, half a century. Guys like Arsenio Ramos, Chandito Gomez, and many others. And he brought them to Nicaragua, and they started growing tobacco. And in the beginning, when you grow tobacco, you always have a buyer because it's a cost to do it, and then it has to turn into money, right. or you have a whole bunch of stuff of product, and you've paid people and the time and energy and everything else. So most people don't grow anything unless there's somebody that says, yeah, I'll take that crop. Right. Whereas he just started doing it, because he always felt that if you have a good product, people will beat a path to your door. And within a short period of time, he started having some major buyers, from the cigar industry buying tobacco from him. And from there, he then got involved into manufacturing and distribution. So it's a vertically integrated company at this point. From seed to ash, we control the whole process. We sell tobacco to lots of great companies out there like Fuente, JC Newman, Drew Estate, Espinosa, and many others. And we manufacture brands like Illusion, Warped, Foundation, Viaje, HVC, Black Star lines, many others. And then we make our own proprietary brands. Until about 5 years ago, the proprietary brands were not really the focal point of the company.
Right.
And I was brought on in 2000, at the very end of 2017 to focus on building the Aganorsa name and brands that they make for themselves.
Okay.
How was that? That was kind of
let me tell you, that's an absolutely great answer. So, in continuation of that, tell me about your background, how you got into the tobacco industry, and how you wound up with Aganorsa Leaf.
So, my name is Terence Reilly, which is about a gringo name as you can have. But my father, he's part of his family on his mother's side had interest in Cuba. They lived in Cuba. They're Spanish, but they had all pretty much by the time of Castro been living in Cuba since the 1880s, at least part of them. The business was started by my great grandfather Antero Gonzalez as leaf brokers. They didn't grow and they didn't manufacture, but they basically did is they bought tobacco and classified it and sold it to factories for cigars and also dark cigarettes as well. And they were the biggest company, I believe, for that business in Cuba when Castro came. When Castro came, and again, they all donated everything generously to Castro in his lovely regime. They relocated to Dominican Republic, and so I had family in Dominican Republic. My uncle Manuel Quesada has been manufacturing cigars since 1974. And when I was younger, I decided, what the hell, I'll spend a summer in Dominican Republic and I'll work in a cigar factory. That'll be fun. I didn't smoke cigars or anything like that. And just thought that would be a fun thing to do. And while I was down there, I would go to my uncle's house on Sunday. And it was two things. One is when you see manufacturing a cigar, it really opens your eyes to how much work goes into making a cigar. I mean, the number of people that have to do their job correctly for it to come out right is staggering. I mean, and it comes right down to you think of the band on the cigar. It's like, oh, well, that's a simple thing. It's like, well, they put too much glue on that band. They rips the wrapper. The guy doesn't say, oh, you know what? This was just perfectly constructed. Everything was done perfectly. But there's one person made a little bit of a mistake. It's all right. What they do is they go, I got a bad one. I got a bad cigar. Yeah. And that's just one person putting a little too much glue. And so that was really impressive. But the other thing was on Sundays at my uncle's, it was always we'd play cards, we'd have lunch, have a couple of drinks, and everyone was smoking except me. So I was kind of like, what the heck? I'll have a cigar. This is fun. And I started, my first cigar was a Fonseca Petit Pelicoso, Fonseca Vintage Petit Pelicoso. Really? And and then I started doing it on Sundays with them and having a fun time. And then it just built from there. A few years later, my uncle asked if I'd like to get involved in the business full time. And so I moved back to the Dominican Republic and worked at the factory for a while, and then came back to the States and worked on the sales side, handling national sales. And then in 2017, I left and came to Aganorsa, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, and you have certainly changed the brand. You really have.
Thank you.
Oh, I mean, from my point of view, I had never heard of Casa Fernandez before you arrived. And when you got there, I know everyone in the crew, and that's 11 of us, we just fell in love with the brand.
Yeah, I think one of the things what attracted me to the company is that most of the things you need were already there. They were established company. It wasn't like it was a guy that was like, oh, I'm going to start a cigar brand or something like that. It was established company. The cigars that they made for other people had a lot of renown and awards and acclaim. And even their own brands had, they'd been on aficionados top 25, top 10, but they just weren't well known. And people kind of the people that didn't know about it, it just wasn't an exciting brand for them. Right. And the best cigar you've never heard of is one you don't smoke. And And so really, I saw that as something I could help with. I could bring attention to the company. I couldn't make their cigars good. Like I don't work in the factory. That's not my role. And even if I did, I mean, I probably know more than the average bear because I've spent time in factories for significant periods. And so I can speak intelligently about a lot of it, but that's not ultimately my role or what I do. And so basically they just were missing that element. And I felt I could help them with that part. And thanks to, Wrecking Crew and a lot of other great groups and people and cigar smokers and retail partners, the brand awareness spread.
Yeah, it definitely has. It absolutely has. How did you come up with Aganorsa Leaf? How do we evolve from Casa Fernandez to Aganorsa Leaf?
Yeah, so when you look at a company, you always kind of this is very crude and nobody is all of one thing, but generally they try to stand out in one of three different ways. Because you walk in the humidor, there's tons of cigars in there. I mean, even for somebody like yourself, way more than the average bear. And I'm sure you walk in the humidor sometimes and you see something and you say, oh, well, I've never seen this before. And it's like, oh yeah, it's been around for a while, or it's been on the market for a couple of years. Right. And you're just, and so everyone's trying to do the same thing. They're trying to grab your attention. They're trying to get you to notice them and try them. And there's three general ways that they kind of do that. They do it based on kind of cult of personality. I always use as a great example, Rocky. It's called Rocky Patel. That's the name of the company.
Right.
His charisma, his personality, who he is, I think is a big part of what makes that company stand out. He's really nobody thinks of Rocky Patel and doesn't think of Rocky. He's very much a part of right. what drives that company. And again, that's not saying it's just him doing it or anything like that. It just means that they've created that brand around him to a large degree. Mm-hmm. Then you have lifestyle based companies. Who owns Davidoff? Who knows? I mean, maybe we know, but I mean, if you asked 100 cigar smokers who's the owner of Davidoff, they wouldn't have any idea about it.
Correct.
But immediately they would think of luxury and the guy with the suit and the watch and the dress shirt. And it would be they've really attached themselves to a lifestyle, and that really allows them to position themselves in a different way, and obviously equally successful. And that's another way to do it. And then the third is product based. There's something about the product itself that kind of stands out. You think of La Flor Dominicana, Alma Ligero, you think of strong, rich cigars, Padron. You think of the product more than anything else. And we're a product based company. So what's special about Aganorsa is the tobacco we grow. I look like today. I look like a Best Buy employee. And that's not a lifestyle anyone's going for, I don't think. And then we're not a cult of personality company. I'm not the owner, and I serve at the pleasure of Eduardo. What makes it special is the tobacco we grow. That's why the people in the industry I mentioned buy tobacco from us. That's why people make cigars with us. We have a signature flavor and aroma that nobody else has. Right. And if you like that, you've got to come to us to get it because it's special. So it made more sense to name the company after that than Casa Fernandez. Number one, there's a lot of Casas. There's a lot of Fernandezes. Right. People would always say, "Oh, I love that cigar. AJ makes great cigars or whatever." And it was confusing. And Eduardo, our owner, is an amazing person. He's if I'm 10% as successful as he is, I'll be a lucky man. Right. But he's not out. Both by disposition and by just time, he's not. He's not able to go out there and preach the gospel of Aganorsa and go to stores and spend all the time with the consumers and everything that's necessary if the brand is going to be around him. Mm-hmm. So rather than have that kind of be the focus, we took it and moved it to the actual product itself and the leaf that we grow. We say our leaf is our strength, and that's really what we promote as making us special.
Absolutely. And you've really done a great job in doing that. I mean, the logo's phenomenal. And all the things that go along with it. Your presence on social media is probably almost second to none. Maybe Steve Saka might rival that. But, he's on there as much as you.
He's good.
Yeah, Eric is out there as well. Eric Espinoza, for those of you that don't know. But You've really done just a great job, and you've got people flexing their arms. You've got people, talking about the company. There's a buzz about the company that's out there, and the product is great. I mean,
Yeah.
it truly is. It's a great product that, you have a great personality, but if you have a terrible brand behind you,
Yeah. It does. Yeah, it's not going
but
to
you
work.
have,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 1-2 punch with you.
Yeah, you have to have all the parts. Like I said, I mean, like that just because Rocky's a cult of personality company doesn't mean the product's not great, or that there isn't a lifestyle element to it, or that
Right.
Davidoff doesn't, have a lot of seminars that show about how great their tobacco is, and the time and energy effort to consistently produce that high end quality luxury item. So there's always a mix in there, and so we're no different than anything else. We just focus on that part as being what is going to stand out. We feel is going to stand out to people the most, and separates us the most. And by the way, the two people you mentioned, I think one of the things that people do well on that level, like you said, Saka and Eric, is they involve people. And so like
Right.
they're both great examples of involving the consumer, involving the retailer, where you feel that you're part of something. And I think that is really important, beyond just simply marketing and getting people to know the slogan and stuff like that. It's getting people to feel that they're welcome and wanted and make a difference within. And it's true. A lot of things we do are based on consumer feedback. The only metric of our success is passion for the product by the consumer. I mean, when people are excited about your product, it transfers. If somebody says, Chaz, what about Aganorsa? And you're like, oh yeah, they have a signature flavor, and large grower in Nicaragua, and Terence Reilly works over there, and like everything you're saying is true, but it doesn't sound that interesting. Whereas
Right.
if you're like, oh yeah, what a company. I've had great times with Terence, and I love this cigar that they make, man. You should definitely try them. And that difference in tonality and passion
Right.
is where people listen. They're like, wow, that sounds like something. And so that's really key to driving. And to do that, the person has to feel part of it. And so, I think the people that you mentioned and lots of other people out there, who are successful, do that. They really get people to feel that they belong and make a difference in the brand and its success and how it's presented and everything.
Oh, absolutely. And also you've coined the phrase validation.
Yeah.
Every cigar we smoke, we got to validate it.
Validate. Yeah.
How did that come about?
It's so that's a great example of something that I try to do a lot. Is I try to take something that's a genuine thing and kind of make it fun, And so, like Paul Palmer, the president of the company, when a shipment comes in, he would always say, "Terence, let's go and validate it." And you open up random, boxes, and you look at the cigars, make sure they look okay. You take them out, you feel them, make sure they don't seem too hard or too soft. Cut, see the draw, light them up, make sure they're burning correctly, make sure their flavor is one, it's excellent, but two, also it's consistent with the last batch and previous batches. So it's a real thing that we actually do.
Right.
But I do think it's funny to call, smoking a cigar validating it. So
Exactly.
So and so I kind of started saying that when I wanted to smoke something that I really enjoy and call it work. I could be like, well, I'm going to go validate this over here. And so it's funny because I even had somebody, they reached out to me and they showed me a text conversation with their wife. It was their day off, and they were like, honey, honey, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm validating right now. And it was like, oh, okay. Well, let me know when you're done. She had some, chores or honeydews to do. And had he said smoking a cigar, it might have been like, well, get in here and, we got to
exactly,
take the kids here or whatever it is. So it's, it sounds like it's work, somebody calls you at the office, from the office. Hey, I'm validating right now. I'll be right in, Oh, okay. So that's kind of how it came about. And, people say it. And some stuff we do kind of catches on, and some stuff is not. And so it's always interesting to see what will be It's never done in the sense of like, oh, I wonder if this will be the next thing people say. I just started saying it because I thought it was funny, and then other people started saying it, and it kind of just rolled from there.
Oh, it just caught on like fire. It really did. Folks, for those of you who don't know, Terrence has a group, or Aganorsa Leaf has a group called Aganorsa Acolytes on Facebook. I'm going to put a link in the description below. Make sure you check them out. And if you do smoke the product, definitely join the group, and you can start validating like the rest of us can.
Please, I can't do it without you. I need fellow validators.
So, what are the unique challenges that you faced in the industry with Aganorsa Leaf?
Well, again, I think there's the things like with tobacco itself. It's you know we're I think around the level of politicians with a lot of people in terms of public perception. I mean, a lot of people associate tobacco with cigarettes and other forms of tobacco, with kids smoking and all that kind of stuff. And so it's always a challenge in the first place of kind of letting people understand or informing them or educating them that this is really a different product. Nobody says that wine and moonshine are the same thing because
right.
They're both alcohol. Nobody looks at them the same way. With tobacco, there's that challenge of anything that's tobacco kind of gets painted with the same brush. So that's a challenge, and then you have obviously government regulation and prohibition and taxes. Those are all challenges that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Certainly the various countries that cigars are made in are always challenging in some ways. And then you have just the general market. There's lots of cigars out there. There's lots of good brands. There's lots of people that are out there working really hard to get the consumer to smoke their brand or validate, as we say. And so how do you stand out, among everyone else? How do you do that? So those are always things we're kind of looking at. And just a good example of the challenge of brand recognition is when COVID was going on, there was a lot of retailers that they would take this, it would be like cash and carry. They would take the cigars to the door or whatever it was, So the consumer would call in and say,
right,
hey, can I get a box of this or that? And they would take it. And the number of retailers that told me they would get calls where somebody would be like, yeah, can I get a box of that cigar I always smoke? And they'd be like, well, which one? It's like, it's on the right-hand side, about 2 shelves up. It's like, well, what's the name of it? It's like, I don't know. It's called something. I think it starts with an A or, well, what size is it? I mean, it's about, I don't know, 6 inches long, I think. Like, they don't know the name of it. They don't know the size of it, and they smoke it all the time. So how hard is it to get them? I mean, when you really think about it's almost daunting. Like, somebody has to walk. And again, we get caught in it because we really enjoy. We spend a lot of our time doing all this. Like even for yourself, like you're in groups. You know a lot of industry people. You're much better connected than the average person that will have a cigar. Right.
Right.
The average person is going to walk into a humidor. There's a few brands that they've heard of, and they have some sort of association with. If they're not guided by staff or ask for help and somebody points them in the direction, they've got to walk in that humidor. Out of all the cigars in there, pick out our cigar.
Right.
Then go and smoke it and enjoy it enough to want to buy it, to remember it and want to buy it again. Save the information. How many times does somebody walk and go, I smoked a cigar, it was great, I can't remember the name. So you did everything and now you lost them already. You guys got
right.
And then even if he remembers the name, let's say that the next place he goes into doesn't have the brand. And he goes, oh well, and he goes back to the brand he was smoking. That's always in every humidor or whatever it is. Right. And then he forgets about. So there's all these things we really have no control over. How do you improve the odds that they pick up your cigar in the humidor? How do you improve the odds that somebody will recommend it? How do you improve the odds that they'll remember it? And all these things are things that we're constantly looking at to see how we can give ourselves a little bit of an edge on those things that we can't control, because there's so many factors that are beyond what we can do.
Absolutely. And for the last 3 years, I've been doing a top 10 list, and Aganorsa Leaf has made the top 10 list each of the last 3 years, with minimum 1 cigar. And I think 1 year there were two cigars on that list, and they're always ranked very high on the list. Cerberus was this past year just a phenomenal stick. Supreme Leaf is another great one. Rare Leaf, Another great cigar. Um, Now, with the rebranding, Rare Leaf has changed its brand or the wrapping, right? It's a little darker color now.
The band.
The band,
Or
yes.
yeah, so the band, so there's the Rare Leaf Corojo, which we're going to change the band and box in the coming months. And we've done a couple sneak previews of that with different things. And then there will be a Rare Leaf Maduro, which will also be coming out as well. So we'll have those two products in the future. And the reason people kind of ask is like, well, didn't the Rare Leaf come out? One of the things, going back to what I said, is that we want the arm to be very, very dominant on everything.
Right.
And at least they can do, going back to, every edge you can get, they can't remember the name. They can't remember, it starts with A. They can go, it's the one with the arm on it. And okay, Aganorsa. So at least, so if that is really projected more prominently in everything, I think that really helps us improve the odds that they're going to remember us.
Right. Absolutely. Now, anything else coming out this year?
Yeah, right now those are kind of. I mean, we know what the biggest challenge it really is once you come out with something, sticking. Everybody wants what's new and the latest release and everything like that. But the hard part is really getting things to stick in the humidor. I mean, people will buy something and try it once because there's a lot of people that just like to try different cigars. They'll try a different one every time they go in the humidor, if that's possible. And then there's people that will try something for, they'll smoke it for a little bit and then they'll look for a new thing. And then to hit the people that will just continually smoke your product, that's much harder to do. And it's more kind of legwork for that because those people are already smoking something all the time that they don't want to switch from. and they're fairly happy where they are. They're not looking for something, but those are the people, that really kind of, pay the bills. Like I always talk about our brand JFR. JFR, if you look at social media, is probably, nobody would be like, that's our biggest brand, by social media, because it's just not posted as much as other stuff. But it's been around for almost 20 years now. It's our bread and butter. And the guys that smoke JFR, at least the majority, they go in that humidor, they walk in, they beamline over to the JFR, they pick it up, they grab a handful, they smoke them, and then they come back and they buy more. And they're not following social media. They're not looking for the layest thing or the new thing. They just like JFR, and those guys are hard to get to. It's a lot more work. There's a lot more things that have to be done, and time wise, it takes a while to really penetrate that group. And so we're trying to really, as we rebrand, to make sure that we're penetrating into that level of consumer, because that's where the vast majority really are. I mean, I always say that, like, the Wrecking Crew, Dojo, these types of groups they're your slingshot. They come in, they build that enthusiasm, they go around, tell other people about it, and they help get you in the stores, they help get other people, they build awareness, everything like that. But eventually you have to penetrate into those lower levels, in terms of longevity. If you don't do that, it's hard because, again, the guys that are more involved in the industry, they learn more about more companies, and they smoke a greater variety of brands, which I would do the same thing if I, as a cigar geek at heart myself. And it's just like, again, I try to do things sometimes just to like put myself in the shoes of the consumer. So occasionally I'll buy a box of cigars from somebody else. And I bought a box one time of JRE, the Reserva, which is just a great cigar, wonderful cigar. Again, I think it's a box of 20, maybe 24 or something like that. It took me almost a year to smoke the whole box. It took me almost a year. Now, because again, I'm mostly smoking Aganorsa, I'm doing things like that, but I do smoke other cigars, and so like, and it's probably, it's the same thing for I think a lot of people on that level. When you're like, there's so many, you've got Saka stuff and Eric stuff and Skip stuff. And then all the other brands that Aganorsa makes, of course, Warp, VI, HVC, all these brands. And then, Fuente, Padron, and this one, like, if it will take you a while to move through that and get back to Aganorsa. Whereas the guy that, if you can get him, that smokes the same thing every day, now you have that guy smoking your cigar day in, day out. The retailer can count on him to, oh yeah, I can buy 6 boxes of JFR because those box, I got, those six guys or 4 guys or 10 guys or however many it is that come in every couple of days and buy them. And that's really a really key element, for, I think, long-term success. It's very hard as a company to continually come out with new stuff, which we all do, but like, if it's pure, you can't be a company of our size and really live that way. If you're a smaller company, like, Andre from VI has a program where it's different things every month. And even he has stuff that repeats, and is, it comes out every year at the same time and stuff like that. And so that, I've made a very long answer to what was a simple question. You have anything new? But my point in all this is simply to say that we're trying to make sure that as we come out with things, that stuff develops roots deep into the cigar community, so that it lasts.
And you've done that with certain brands. I mean, let's just look at Supreme Leaf. You've released it in different vitolas.
Yeah,
and it's come out in different releases, and they've all done extremely well. The latest one was it was a round. It wasn't a box press this time.
Yeah, this time it was. We went with a round version. Yeah, with Supreme Leaf, what we try to do is, with certain things, is balance the new aspect with knowing what you're getting your hands on. And both those things are important. The excitement of new, right? Oh, it's new, it's different. You get that enthusiasm with knowing what you're going to kind of get, or at least have an idea. Like, and again, I can't tell you how many times I do this. When you go to Chaz, next time you buy something that you like, but you're not as involved in as cigars, like whether it's wine or whiskey or whatever. A lot of times, or a restaurant, a lot of times happens is, if you don't know really what you want, you go to something you kind of know what you're going to get. You know what I mean? And so, like, there's always that sense of, well, do I really want to go to this restaurant that I don't know anything about it, and I could be, I could not like it? Or there's this other restaurant next door that's a chain or whatever, but like, I know what I'm going to get there. I know what the food tastes like. I know, and so those are both important things. And so with Supreme Leaf, it's the same blend. So you know what you're getting involved in each time we release it, but changing the size, as we know, has an impact on the experience. So you kind of know, it's like you want to see like a baseball game is different every time you see it, but like, it's always baseball, you exactly. Know what's going to, fundamentally what's going to happen. You don't know the exact result, which makes it interesting to watch, but you also, you're not showing up and you're watching water polo or something like that. You're like, well, what the heck is this? And so with Supreme Leaf, because it's the same blend, you have that, okay, I know what I'm getting into with, what'll it be like this time? And so that's the idea behind it.
And for those of you that don't know, cigars in different vitolas, the taste is very different. The experience is very different from vitola to vitola. And it's definitely something you should try. In fact, you know what I'd love to see, Terence? I'd love to see a Supreme Leaf sampler in all different vitolas. I think that'd be a killer idea.
Yeah, to have all the different sizes. We've talked about doing something like that, having some sort of edition where you could get them all at some point. I think we want to get up to at least 10 before we do that. That way, you'd have I think I don't know what number we're at. I think we're at 6 now. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6. We're at number 6. So, well, or at least now, yeah, or maybe 8. Well, we'll do, but I like the idea. I think we'll probably do it at some point, just because it'd be cool for people, because we do hear that a lot. It's like, oh, I never got to try this one, or this one was gone before I was able to buy it, and they want to try them all. So that would be a cool way to have it, have a chance to try them all.
Exactly, and under the Aganorsa Leaf JFR, that's another great line of cigars as well. First time I had the Connecticut was last time I got to see you.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that was a great cigar. I was really shocked. I mean, I've tried the Aganorsa Leaf Connecticut. I tried the JFR Connecticut. I like them both, but I was extremely happy with both of them. It really was. It was a great experience. I enjoyed it. For me, for breakfast, I like a Connecticut. with my breakfast. A lot of people like Maduros and everything else, but for me, it's got to be a Connecticut when I have my coffee. Um, that's my breakfast cigar.
I like our Connecticut a lot as well, simply because like when I travel, you go, cigars are, again, it's a different type of business. When you go to different retailers as I travel, they kind of expect to have a cigar with you, most of them. Not all of them, but most of them, they want to sit down and have a cigar with you. And if you're kind of like, I'm done, I'm done smoking for the day, that's it kind of kills the mood a little bit. The guy's like, you came in from Miami and you're here and I haven't seen you in a year and you don't even want to have a cigar with me. It kind of kills the mood. But like if you see 5, 6, 7 shops in a day, that can certainly add up. And so I tend to have our Aganorsa Leaf Connecticut or JFR Connecticut quite a bit, because I can have that and not be my palate blown out. So by the 7th store we visit,
exactly, nicotine overload.
Yeah. It's like I can see through time.
So Terence, when you do events, you do something special at events. You allow people to try different wrappers, a different tobacco. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think with we call it the Aganorsa Leaf Experience, and again, because we've branded ourselves as the tobacco being special, it's always better to show rather than tell. And at our Aganorsa Experience events, what we do is we take 2 of our tobaccos that we use in all our blends. It's kind of like every cake has sugar and butter in it, except weird vegan cakes, and nobody likes those. But basically, every cake will have those 2 ingredients in some capacity. And so for us, we use Corojo 99 seed varietal from Jalapa, and Criollo 98 Cuban seed varietal grown in Esteli. And all our blends use those 2 tobaccos in some capacity. And so what we have people do is you smoke the Corojo 99, you see how it makes you salivate. It gives you spice on the tip of the tongue and a lingering sweetness. And then you smoke the Criollo 98. Just a rolled up leaf, not a cigar, just a single leaf. And you smoke the 98 for a bit, and you get the kind of, it hits you more down the middle of the palate. You get more grittiness, earth, salt, from that. And then you add them together, you kind of Cheech and Chong it, and you puff them both at the same time, and you see how they combine, to create complexity and balance, and how they go together. And that really is the backbone of Aganorsa. By tasting those 2 components together, you're getting a sense of what Aganorsa is. Now, again, some people like Corojo 99 more. We have blends that are more dominant with that. We have Criollo 98 blends that are more dominant. And then, of course, you add lots of other tobaccos. That's Chopsticks Cigars, a symphony. But it really will. If I always say, if you don't like those 2 fumas, and the experience of them together, don't buy our cigars because that's what you're going to have some expression of that. I always say it's kind of like we're kind of like a whiskey bar. You go to some companies or I would say even most companies, they're kind of like your standard bar, which has advantages. It's like you like vodka, you like gin, you like tequila, you like rum, you like scotch, whatever you like, they have something for you. But the downside of that is just because you like the tequila doesn't mean you like the vodka. Like you're not going to like. They have something definitely for you, but everything probably won't be for you. And then for us, we're more like a whiskey bar where, again, is there different expressions? Is peated scotch, non-peated scotch, sherry cask, oak, all these things are going to create different experiences. Nobody says they all taste the same, but when you're drinking scotch, what you're getting into. And with Aganorsa, that's kind of how we are. You know what you're getting into. If you don't like us, there's probably not much you're ever going to like from us. And if you do like us, most of our line will be conducive to your palate, with obviously favorites and things you like more or less. But the advantage is that, okay, it's Aganorsa. Okay, I know what I'm getting into. Right. If I get that.
Yeah, you're definitely getting quality product. Who does the blending for you? Who is your master blender?
So we for many years, Arsenio Ramos was in charge of that. Arsenio Ramos was a high-level Cuba Tobacco employee. He was in charge of fermentation for Cuba. He worked there for many, many years, I think half a century. And then he came over to Nicaragua and worked for us about 20 years. He passed in 2000. in 2018. But however, we have a whole bunch of other guys that are all involved. We have some guys who have been with us almost as long or longer, who from the old Cuban group that originally came over. And then we have some younger Cuban guys and some Nicaraguan guys who have been working with us for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have Max Fernandez, Eduardo's son, and Eduardo himself, who are all involved. So we kind of have more of a committee and different people, depending on the style of cigar we want. Some guys will be more towards their specialty and taste profile than others. And of course, my role was with the market. And again, if you come up with a cigar called Simtex, and it's mild, it doesn't make any sense. It could be a great cigar, but it's not right for what you're trying to do. And so my role is kind of to make sure that the blend fits into the portfolio in terms of, its flavor and how it's marketed.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's great. Now we've touched on this a little bit, but some of the strategies that you've used to retain your customers and your retailers. How many days a year do you travel? Post COVID?
Yeah. I probably end up being on the road about 2 weeks out of the month, on average, so some months it's less. Like January was only one week. But then, as the year goes on, sometimes it can be, closer to 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then there's, I don't even count local travel. Like if I go up to Smokin, or go up to, most of South Florida, I don't even count that as, I guess it's technically traveling, but I don't count that, part of it. So, as time goes on, I'm trying to spend a little less time on the road, not because, for no other reason than, as time goes on, I'm developing responsibilities for things that I need to be in the office more to handle a little bit. But I'm still on the road quite a bit. I'm still on there all the time.
No, we definitely see you out there. And folks, if you've never gone to an Aganorsa event, you really should. It's a great experience. I've been fortunate to do the Aganorsa experience twice, and I can tell you it's absolutely phenomenal. It really is. So you've had the last trade show, TPE. How did that go for you?
Well, it was interesting in the sense that this year it was in February, or deeper into February than it was in the previous few years. It was in May one year, but that was just because of COVID and how that threw everything off. But generally speaking, TPE is basically like the last few days of January into the first day or so of February. And this year it was deeper into February. It was still a good show for us. I do think that pushed it closer to some other events. It was the same time as Pro Cigar in Dominican Republic, and it was it's less than a month away from TAA, which is another big convention for a lot of very important retailers in the country. So I don't think it was as well attended as some previous years, but to make up for that, we opened some accounts that we've been looking to work with for quite a while, and
good.
It hasn't happened, and it was definitely well worth going, as it's always been. I think they're moving it back to the same time zone, the time frame as it was in previous years, and I think that will help as well.
Right. Now this weekend you've got the NFG event, and that's something you go to every year. You have a cigar coming out for that, I understand.
Yeah, God, yeah. No, the angel of Fort Worth. This guy, it's funny. I don't even dress up for Halloween. Like, I don't even know. But these crazy guys, is a joke. A few years ago, they said I look like Joel Osteen, which I'll never forgive them for.
No, you shouldn't.
So that's kind of become a theme of one year it was Learn to Swim, which was Joel Holstein, and we gave away a life raft, and then last year was the Bishop of Fort Worth, where I was St. Terence of Aganorsa. So this year it's the Angel of Fort Worth, and I got an angel costume or some godforsaken thing that I'll probably never live down. Hopefully my son doesn't run for office. I'll ruin his political career.
Oh, God, yeah. After that, you've got what? You've got the Great Smoke.
Yeah, so then Great Smoke. Yep, I'll be up there for that. That's always a great event. I'm doing the brunch on Sunday following it, so I'll be up there for that. That'll be a lot of fun. And it's always great to see there's so many people that come out to the Great Smoke. It's a lot of fun seeing everybody come by
every year.
Yeah, and Abe always tops himself somehow.
He does. I have no idea how he does it. I know he beats the hell out of himself, but he does. I mean, it's a phenomenal event. If you haven't gone to it, you probably missed out for this year in getting tickets, but definitely next year, put it on your calendar. Great Smoke from Smoke Inn. Great show. Definitely be there. And I think that they have virtual still. They've the last couple of years. They do a virtual as well as an in-person. Both are equally done. I mean, they're done equally as well. Mike Herkelotz is the one that hosts the virtual side, and Abe hosts the in-person, and all the vendors that are there. I forget how many vendors. It's a lot of vendors that are there.
No, there's tons, and then God bless Herkelotz. It's like 12 hours of nonstop, and he does an amazing job. And again, when they did the virtual that one year, I was like, man, they should just do this. This is great. I thought it was really. I was surprised he went back to the in person in addition, because it just seemed like it went so well. But then he combined them both, and it was even better. He had all the people there and the enthusiasm of that, plus the people that couldn't make it out from wherever they are in the country got to enjoy it as well. So again, they do a great job.
Now, are you doing anything special for the Great Smoke?
We don't have anything as being released for it. We do have our validation line and Eversara line. We'll have some great specials on that stuff with some, everyone gets an Aganorsa lighter with a box.
Oh, nice.
So that, so we got that stuff out there, and, I'll be there, singing, dancing, and maybe giving out some validation patches. If you get a box Aganorsa, we got to make sure you're officially validated. We don't want people doing, some people, they validate without certification. I overlook it because, it's like, I appreciate them doing it, but really everyone should be certified, validated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. Then the next big event is the PCA event.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, that'll be in the summer. PCA is always a great show. We'll be, the only problem with this course is in Vegas is like, in South Florida, when it's hot, you want to die. In Vegas, you could actually die.
Yeah.
But it's, it's still, it's one of the last, trade shows certainly it was even before COVID, but certainly with COVID, you've seen kind of people moving away from them. And I still feel that there's a great value, even with TP, and PCA is much bigger, of getting together with your retail partners and seeing them face to face and, shaking hands and meeting afterwards and having a dinner with them or drink at the bar, whatever it is. And I think that there's really a special thing about that. Cigars are about, connecting in relationships, and certainly on the virtual side, we've improved our ability to do that. But I don't think there's anything, as much as I love seeing you virtually, Chaz, I think hanging out with you is always better. So,
it's a lot more fun for me as well. It really is.
So that's, I always look forward to PCA and you get to see so many of our partners. And that's really often the only time I get to see them, because as much as I travel, you can't see, you just can't see everybody.
No.
And so that PCA gives you opportunity to really, shake hands with a lot of people that we really value.
Right. And then the last big event, I guess, is what? Rocky Mountain?
Rocky Mountain is an amazing event. They've done a great job. They have so many people at that. It's in Colorado, which is not exactly the most conducive state to cigar smoking. You can't even smoke in downtown Boulder. Honestly, I have such a great time at that event. Plus the dojo always has a whole bunch of crazy things going on. And we do a brewery tour, and, with me and Tom Lazuka from Asylum, I've always, and usually there's another, vendor as well. Alec Bradley did it last year. And, again, those types of things, they just remind you why we do this. It's like, I have such a good time just hanging out. And those guys, they're trying to sell their brands, and, it's friendetition or whatever it is. Somebody came up with a word the other day. We're all out there competing. But at the same time, I respect all those guys, and to be able to go out and hang out with them and have fun and go to the dojo. Eric's done a great job bringing everybody together for that. And, And so that's a really fun event as well.
He's really created quite the culture with the dojo.
Absolutely.
And I applaud him for what he's done. It's not easy having a group, especially I don't even know how many members they have. It's a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I go someplace. I mean, and somebody from the dojo shows up at an event, or every time I'm in that area, comes out to somewhere I am to meet and everything. And so, really, I mean, Washington, California, Texas, Florida, New Hampshire, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like everywhere I go, there's some dojo person that will show up, and they're all great. They're always great. I've never met. I mean, I've never met anyone from the dojo where I'm like, oh man, that guy. Ugh. It's just, and he's been able to cultivate just a great group of people.
And there's a lot of us that have been there, God, years. I think I've been on there since I'm going to say 2015. And I think it's been going on since 2009, maybe, or maybe a little bit later than that.
Yeah, 9 or 10 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're great to me. I have no complaints. So the future of Aganorsa, where do you see it heading now?
I think we just want to keep building on the momentum. You're only as good as your last day. I think there's tons of companies that 10 years ago you'd been like, man, that was one of the hot companies out there, and they're gone today. Or if thell around, they're a shell of what they used to be for whatever reason. And you just can't rest on your laurels. You have to keep taking. I feel that we've really helped create a really good community that's growing and developing, and is spreading passion for Aganorsa, and we can't say, okay, well, our job is done here. Let's sit back and reap the rewards. We have to keep doing that. We have to keep preaching the gospel, and again, that's where I'm always very appreciative of, whether it's people like you, Chaz, that have me on their podcasts or their shows or whatever it is, that give me an opportunity to speak to their audience, or our retail partners who allow me to come in and talk to their staff and consumers, or the consumers who go out there and go to stores and tell the people there, hey, you got to have Aganorsa. It sounds like such a simple thing, but really that is how we've grown. Is just that passion has spread, and you can't do it alone. You need a lot of people to share that with, and the goal is just to keep growing that.
Now, do you do anything internationally?
Yeah, I kind of have a funny role with that. I don't handle international business, but I end up being kind of a gateway for it. So I end up talking to a lot of distributors and things like that, and I kind of create the connection with the factory, and I kind of help soothe the relation. I ease people into the relationship with the factory, and occasionally I get called in to help resolve some sort of confusion or something like that. And we're planning on actually, I'll be going to Dortmund is the plan this year.
Okay.
Just to walk, just to walk around and kind of see people out there. But I'll tell you, every day I get a message from some distributor that wants to work with us, is working with us, is reaching out again or whatever it is, and all over the world. And so that there's no question, there's a giant, well, I wouldn't say giant, but there's a growing market that is going to become gigantic, I think, for the international market. You have China, consumption is increasing, for cigars. And because they're buying all the Cubans, all the traditional markets, whether it's the Middle East or in Europe or even, other countries or areas of the world, you're seeing, hey, we need cigars. We can't get Cubans, or our customers can't afford them anymore because they jacked up the prices so much on us.
Right.
And even then, even if we want, you will pay them money that we can't get them. There's an opening there. And also it's easier to find out information. I mean, if you're in, Russia or Spain or Africa, you can go on, Instagram and look up Aganorsa Leaf, and see our videos and see our cigars and learn a lot about us, or be in our Facebook groups, Aganorsa Acolytes, and be like, oh, wow, those would be interesting cigars I try. And they ask almost more and more. The distributor, when I talk to them, will say, yeah, we're getting requests for Aganorsa. And so that's kind of how it starts the ball rolling, is that people are learning more about us, and there's, creating a demand.
And Nicaragua has really grown in terms of tobacco. Where Cuba. I'm not a Cuban cigar aficionado by any means, but from what I understand, Cuban cigars are fairly linear in taste because it's basically the same thing. I guess the crops aren't done the same way they are in Nicaragua or Honduras or even Dominican Republic, or other parts of Central America. But Nicaragua has so many different regions that grow tobacco in different strengths and flavors and everything else. It's overpowered. I think the Cuban marketplace.
Yeah, I mean Cuba. I mean, because of their infrastructure. I mean, they make less cigars today than they did in 1970. And so they don't have the resources to meet the world demand. And there's corners cut and things like that. In fairness to the Cubans, when you do get a good Cuban cigar, they are excellent. They're world class when you get one, but that's a big if. And again, the non-Cuban cigars, pound for pound, I mean, there's no American consumer that would accept the concept of Cuban cigars, how they operate. Like, so for instance, when I lived in England, a guy would buy a box of Cuban cigars, 400 or 500 pounds. So that's a lot. It's a lot of money.
It is.
And then they'd be like, yeah, you got to sit on them for a year or so. They're not ready, but a couple of them won't draw. But that's just how it is. I mean, there's no way an American consumer would accept a product that is like $30 a pop. That they would tell you, if you buy one and it's not good, buy another one and probably don't smoke it for a year. I mean, there's no returns for these people. I mean, you buy one and I was in Ireland and I had a plugged, what was it? I think it was a Partagas, and I was like, this is plugged. And they were like, well, buy another one. See if that one's plugged. It was like I just paid 25 euros for this thing. I mean, there's nothing. That's it. They're like, that's what it is, man. It's like, they don't do returns, And so,
it's crazy.
No American consumer would accept that
at all.
And so we, the non-Cubans just have to be better. Taste is always subjective, but in terms of quality and consistency, they have to be better because you just could not survive with that mentality that the Cuban market operates with in the rest of the world.
Now, have things gotten better in Nicaragua where you're getting more product sooner, or is it still kind of delayed because of the whole COVID thing with the shipping and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly better. I would say there's definitely issues. A lot of people have left Nicaragua. I think it's something like 200,000 people have left Nicaragua and have got, either gone to the U.S. or Costa Rica or wherever else they've gone. But they've left the country. That's a lot of people. It's not a big country.
Right.
And those are most. And the other thing is for instance, if let's say a guy leaves his family and goes to the U.S., the money he sends home, his family doesn't necessarily work. So now she stays home with the kids. And so now you're taking another person out of the workforce. And so that has caused some issues. It's still hard to get people, to work because one, they can bounce around and go to the highest bidder because who's ever there, has an advantage. Everyone's hiring. And two, even then, if you can get people, there's just not enough. Everyone needs more people. So, that's been challenging, but it's not like it was during like the height of COVID when like it was just insane. I mean, you couldn't. I mean, there's factories operating at night because they couldn't get people to work during the day.
Right.
So they would operate at night, and people would come after they'd finished their one job and go to the other and work at night in another factory.
I'm really amazed any cigars came out of there as much as they have, because there were still a lot of new releases that came out during COVID.
Yeah, it was Nicaragua, I mean, didn't have the shutdowns that like Dominican Republic did. I mean, there was very little shutdown. People live hand to mouth for a lot. It's the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and so they don't. There's not like, okay, well, the government will send checks and we'll live off our savings for the next couple months. I mean, people have to work to live, and so there wasn't this type of shutdown there that there was in a lot of other countries, and which again just fed the demand more, because if your cigars aren't coming from Dominican or Honduras, well, Nicaragua's producing cigars, so now you have even more demand. So in some ways that even exacerbated the issue, because you could ship, but because you were the only one in the game in town, at least for a little while there, it was it became even more difficult to make everybody happy.
Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for having me on. If anyone's listening, please, Aganorsa Acolytes on Facebook, Aganorsa Leaf Instagram, Aganorsa Leaf, our YouTube channel has great videos if you're interested in watching any of.
Yes, it does.
The guys that we've been talking about, our Cuban agronomists, our fields, our factory. You can see our brands. You can see a lot of videos on them, our retail partners, and follow, like, subscribe, stay in touch, let us know your thoughts. A lot of what we do is based on the consumer's feedback, and we want to hear from the consumer. So if you're listening, let us know what you think of Aganorsa.
Well, Terence, I thank you for taking time out of your evening to spend with me. It's been a real pleasure interviewing you, and I can't wait to see you at the Great Smoke.
It's going to be a great time. I can't wait to see you guys. It's always a lot of fun.
Same here. Just give me 1 second, folks. That's going to conclude this episode of Inside the Wrapper. As always, please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And remember, stay blessed, and I'll see you on the next one.